Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV. Ramazan Mubarak, the end of Ramazan Mubarak. Happy Eid. I hope you've had an absolutely wonderful month of reflection, spiritual regeneration, etc. And more importantly, you also had a really good Eid as a family together, and that this occasion of the celebration of the Eid al-Fitr has given you the opportunity to come back as more stronger, as a united community, united family, and that the whole month itself has given every one of us the opportunity to reflect within ourselves where we are, how we're dealing with issues around our own spirituality, how we reflect on how we've behaved in the past, and what we look forward to doing in the future. So I hope you have had a wonderful Eid. We're now at in the new term, as they say in school. We're starting afresh, inshallah, and over the next few weeks and months, we want to try and bring to you programs that you feel are touching your particular issues and needs. And we want to try and make sure that we use this hour that we have as presenters on IQRA TV to bring in front of you those who make a difference to your lives, who also make a difference to other people's lives. So over this hour, we want to talk about not just about Ramadan and how the month of Ramadan has affected you, but also where we would like to go in the future and how you can be part of that future as well. So inshallah, I have with me today my special guest, somebody who is very familiar to every one of you. You've probably seen him more in this last month than you've seen him in the previous few months, and that is Mufti Yusuf Akuri Sahab, the coordinator, the manager, the mover and shaker of the IQRA TV station in the north, who will be talking, and we'll have a dialogue with him. But if you want to ring in and share your thoughts and your views on how Ramadan has been for you and how you see us going forward in partnership with yourself, then please feel free to ring in. I'm sure you know the number by now. It's 01274 214 299. I'll just repeat that again, 01274 214 299. I look forward to receiving your calls, and let's make this into a participating event today in this program. And over the next few weeks, we have some ideas who we want to bring in front of you and how you may be part of those programs as well. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti Sahab. Nice to have you back. Nice to be on IQRA TV again. Nice to be doing real talk after a break. How are you keeping? How's Ramadan been for you?
Let me just say, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am, alhamdulillah, well, and as you can see, rejuvenated with the spiritual element of our time.
Have you lost weight?
I have, alhamdulillah.
That's one thing I've done. I've lost about 7 pounds or 8 pounds in weight, and I said to my doctor, Allah should have prescribed Ramadan for me throughout the whole of the year, and then I'd look as good as he does. I think maybe he should make different rules for different people. But yeah, nice to have you here.
It's been good. I mean, let's just look at Ramadan as a whole, and then how we've sort of had that new lease of life, I would call it. And most of the scholars interpret being in Ramadan as a new lease of life, and then after Ramadan as the actual ground that you're going to go through. So you've had the training in that 1 month, and you've got another 11 months to sort of pass. And this is our journey, this is our spirituality, whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, psychological, it's all a challenge, and it's all a journey.
As Muslims, I've noticed, obviously, and everybody probably will say this to you, when we in the month of Ramadan, you go to the masjid, and the masjids are packed out. Right, and the day after Eid, we used to have
we see
10,
a massive lull.
15 safs in my masjid before Ramadan, and the day after Eid we had 4 safs. Now obviously people may be celebrating, they may be with their families, so they can't be in the masjid, they may have gone away. But even 2 or 3 days later, right, the number of people who come into the masjid obviously drops dramatically, as you say. Now, sometimes you can understand that people may be taking time off work to make sure that they have the ability to go to the masjid on a regular basis in the month of Ramadan, but obviously then they have to go back. But we as Muslims are really weak, aren't we?
We are, and I suppose it just reflects how badly shaitan wants release, as one would say, or the punctuality. And one of the things, I'm not saying everybody that's missing from the congregation or the masjid prayers are not praying. It's the importance we hold and we hold dear in terms of the congregational Jama'at prayers in a masjid. I mean, let's put it this way. You pray namaz or salah on your own at your workplace, but then the evening or morning prayers should be exceptional in terms of, like you've just said, you had 5 rows now, but before in Ramadan you were having 15. So why don't we have them 15 in the off-peak or the times when people are at home? And this is one of the things that we need to ponder. If someone was giving you £1 million and £27 million, what would you take as a reward?
But
that's the equivalent for the reward of Jamaat.
The question I have is, I mean, Allah mujhe bhi maaf kare, Allah mujhe bhi tawfiq de, right? That gives me the strength as well.
Ameen, ameen.
But have we become simply practitioners for the sake of practicing it? I mean, I remember many years ago, one of our doctors who used to live in our area moved to one of the Middle Eastern countries. I won't name the country. And you know, after 25, 30 years, you know, he kept coming back, but he came back and he settled down. And I said to him, I asked him the question, do the people in that particular country who are Muslims, right, in the Middle East, do they practice Islam? And he says, shall I give you an honest answer? And I said, yes, please do. And he says, I'm not sure they practice Islam, but what's happened is over the years, they've begun practicing praying namaz, whether namaz is spiritual or not. And this is a question I ask our viewers as well. As Mufti Sahib said, and you know, we all know, Ramzan, Allah Pak created the month of Ramadan for us, you know, to give us the opportunity to reconnect with our faith, to reinvestigate within ourselves where we stand when it comes to our Islam, and you know, refocus within ourselves how really truly Islamic we really are in the way we behave, the way we practice Islam, the way we offer our prayers, the way we interact with other people, and much more importantly, how the concept of fasting itself, you know, how we actually adopt that concept. I mean, one of the purposes of fasting is try and get an understanding of what it's like for people who don't have the same food, you know, so facilities, sometimes no food whatsoever. So it gives you the opportunity to feel how people who go hungry feel. Yet when we break our fast, right, every night we have a feast. And to me, that is a contradiction. Do you agree with me?
I do, and subhanAllah, you've touched upon something I sort of said throughout the holy month of Ramadan, and this is something I was talking about. We need to move away from adat to ibadat, from habitual stuff, cultural, habitual practices, whether it's praying, whether it's fasting. You know, we fast. I mean, we're talking about food and diet here, but again, it's a ibadah. It's not a habit. It's not a diet. It's not a regime. So same thing, salah. Have we actually took salah prayers for what it is, or are we just going through the motions as we are? Similarly, fasting. Are we actually fasting for what it's prescribed to be, as opposed to fasting as an adat or a habit, or due to culture, or due to society, or due to that country, because everybody's fasting this month, or due to our environment, or in our homes and family, that we're all praying, fasting, or doing certain things out of culture, habit, and maybe clockwork and autopilot, as opposed to, you know, looking at our iftar time and thinking, okay, let me do iftar as a Salaf Salihin, the pious predecessors would, maybe just on water and dates, and maybe a few things.
We have piles of samosas and pakoras
so
every day.
I mean, even then, we're looking at Salaf Salihin, pious predecessors, water, dates, and you know, a bit of fruit. But that's giving us time to reflect, to ponder, to do more dhikr, to do more Quran, to do more ibadah. But then we're also having that empathy, that emotion, that love and hunger, that feeling for those that are vulnerable, less fortunate. And
so what would you say to people who are fasting? You know, inshallah, everybody has been fasting. That when you break your fast, don't turn it into, iftar into a feast.
I mean, those who can fast and those who can't fast, again, it's about a mindset. And those who can't due to medical reasons, or those who do. Let's look at what Allah's asking us in terms of why we fast and what kind of reflection and pondering. I mean, people do that alternative day fasting, Mondays and Thursdays. There's been reports on it. There's been health diets and plans and everything else on it. It's not about that, is it? It's first and foremost, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Meaning Allah has commanded us first and foremost sincerity, devotion, ikhlas. What's our intention, purpose? Ubudiyya, ibadah, worshipping the one and only Creator Allah. So let's get back with Him, rekindle, rejuvenate our spirits and souls and iman with Allah and the connection. So our ibadah, whatever it is, it's not culture, it's not society, it's not community, it's not the country, it's not norms and practices or habitual things. It's to do with the command of Allah.
And I think you mentioned something there about fasting being good for your health. Even, I mean, there's all sorts of diets out there at the moment. But one of the diets I was reading about the other day was the 5-2 diet.
Yeah, alternative day fasting.
So
yeah.
Obviously, medically,
Mondays and Thursdays.
Medically, it's been proven that if you fast, it will help you become healthier. So Islam made this, 1400 years ago. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you fast, for a month and then fast as many as you can during the rest of the month, year, it'll be good for you. So it proves that what Islam had come up with in the Prophet ﷺ and Allah's commandment shows that there are enormous health benefits. But let's go back to the other thing is, how many of our viewers feel that this Ramadan, forget the previous Ramadans, this Ramadan has actually been transformational for them as individuals? I'd like to hear from people's views. Do you feel that there's something happened this year that has changed you as a person, as a Muslim, as a better person? If you have, please share it with us and share it with other people. Maybe they might be inspired from what you've gone through. But going back, I've had this question many times in my family, in my mind. We don't eat samosas and pakoras every day, all right? So do we, by having that rich food and biryanis and everything, and the ruy abza and the faluda and everything else, do we actually negate the purpose behind the month of fasting? You've just said, water, khajur, dates and fruit, right? That gives you a better appreciation. So do you think that by the way we behave during the month of fasting, by the amount of food that we make, and I'm sure Allah maaf kare, a lot of that might be wasted as well. So are we then being sinful if we are wasting that food? I hope we're not. So what's your opinion on that?
And I agree wholeheartedly with what some of the things you've said, and I hope our viewers are not wasting. That's one of the things we've always touched upon. But yes, if you look at the door of the Salaf Salihin and all the Khulafai Rashideen and how the Prophet ﷺ would fast and how they would have their iftars and suhoors in terms of the diet. And this is something we really need to understand. And there's things now coming out. SubhanAllah, we talked about the 2-5 fasting, or 5-2 fasting, which is again the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ, Mondays and Thursdays. Similarly, fasting, that there's so many things coming out in diets and the diet world, which are known as superfoods or super,
gives you energy and vitality.
Dates, olives or olive oil, dates, olive oil, water in its own, and then you're looking at those things that are mentioned in the Holy Quran, like figs as well. So some of the things, if we were to adopt that just in terms of how our beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would eat and would share and would have his breaking of fast, this would be amazing for us, and it would be giving us a total rejuvenating of our body and soul and spirit, and detoxifying all these things that we are so prone to be addicted to, whether it's caffeine, whether it's sugars, whether it's teas and other things that...
Well, I think one of the purposes of the whole month of fasting, as far as I see it, is that when you refrain from something
Mhm.
like that, all right, that you refrain from everything that, in a way, sort of, you like in the world.
Mhm.
So whether it's, whether it's the type of food or the drink that you have, and, Allah says, well, for 1 month,
Mhm.
during the daytime, from sunrise to sunset, before that, you will refrain from having those good things that you really love and like,
Mhm.
right? So that is supposed to discipline us. Yeah, when we break our fast, I mean, in the old days, I used to be a smoker. I gave up about 18 years ago now. And I remember as soon as I used to break my fast, the first thing I wanted was a cigarette.
Mhm.
Now I've given up. Lucky me, I don't even think about it except, on some occasion. So are we saying that, in the month of fasting, we talk about yes, sunnat ko zinda karo, oh sunnat ko zinda karo, behave better Muslim. But I've never heard a bayan which says, are you eating properly? Are you eating the way you should be eating?
Well,
Has anybody made bayans to say, remind people?
You need to tune into IQRA TV more often when we're doing the appeals in Ramadan. I mean,
No, appeals are different because you're showing people who have no food.
Ramadan reminders,
Yes.
as we call them. And again, we do talk about that, actually,
Right.
the food and diet. I've talked about this throughout Ramadan, and I must have talked about it last Ramadan and the Ramadan before, and I actually mentioned once, with I think Mufti Shiraz it was, that let's challenge ourselves in terms of not just spirituality. We were talking about how many, we'll go on to that a bit later on, but how many Quran khatams somebody does, whether it's one, or whether it's one a day, or whether it's two a day, day and night. And there are people who do that.
Yeah, I know somebody, yeah.
So that's by the by. But then again, let's look at our food side and let's challenge ourselves. Okay, who's going to just do a water diet, as in water fast, or water and dates, aswadain as it's known as, two black things, dates and water. And who's going to do that for the next 24 hours or 48 hours? You've got food, but the only thing you have is dates, and you've got water, and it's just plain water. None of these sugar, everything else that we branded labels that we want to drink. So it's just water and dates. You can eat as many as dates you want, and I think if you limit that as well, maybe. And then same with the water. Let's just say you have 5 liters or 10 liters or 15 liters of water.
But is that truly feasible when you're 19-20 hours fast in the for example in England?
It is.
When it's a hot day. We had temperatures of 30 degrees at one stage last few months.
Two years ago.
Yeah.
But this Ramadan, I think it's been relatively mild
By
and
the grace
wet.
of Allah, it's been really mild, because I remember just before Ramadan started, I saw somewhere this news that came out that May and June is going to be really, really hot, and my first thoughts were, Allah bachaya hame. If the temperatures are going to go above 20 degrees, and we are fasting, I'm sure some people will find it very difficult. So by the grace of Allah, He's been very kind and merciful to us. That He has been, He's been. I've just been told by somebody that in Pakistan is 45 degrees, but yeah, by the grace of Allah, we've been very kindly looked after. I mean, anybody in the Middle East or in Pakistan or India or Bangladesh, they have my deepest sympathies, and I'll tell you what, they're far better Muslims than I am in those types of heat to be fasting throughout the day. But then their days are short as well, so that compensates for them as well. So yeah, but sorry, you're coming back. So you were saying to people,
just one day. I mean, I'm not full 30 days. I'm not saying don't eat no samosas and pakoras or ruhe afza or any other thing. Challenge yourself. I mean, each individual can assess themselves what they are capable of.
I mean, inshallah, next year, Ramadan, if I'm alive,
if they can,
I will try it.
If they can, if they can. If not, then add a few things on. Okay, I'm having dates, water, and two types of fruits, or 3 types of fruits, or I'll have 3 types of fruits and maybe 1 pakora. Depending on how you
need a bit of spice in your life, don't you?
How depending on how you can control yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if we try and do that in terms of getting back to, let's just put ourselves in the shoes of, let's say, somebody who's living in Africa, in a drought area.
I mean, look at Yemen, the way things are in Yemen at the moment.
Na'udhu billah. And this is something we were doing vigorously in throughout Ramadan, the 5 emergency areas: Yemen, Syria, Gaza, Iraq being another one that's forgotten, and Burma, Rohingya. So these are 500 for 5 we were doing, £500 for 5 emergency areas. But Yemen has taken a turn drastically for the worse in terms of, last year they were giving figures of 12 million or 13, 14 million dependent on food. Now it's above half the population. I mean, Yemen's population would be about 30 odd million
Right.
plus. And you're looking at
Half the population.
Half the population, 15, 18, 17 million, depending on what agencies you read on, dependent on food.
Food aid, yes.
Food aid, and every day, we were hearing nearly every 10 minutes there's a child was dying, and it's every 10 minutes, but every 5 minutes a life was being lost.
Okay, we'll come to talk about the charity work that or charity engagement that people get involved in. Obviously, in the month of Ramadan, everybody wants to be more generous, and they give lots of money and try and make sure that they contribute to all these appeals. But just coming back to the issue of the month of Ramadan and how we actually practice it. Right? And as I said, you go to the masjid, they're absolutely full. I mean, what do masjids really need to do? So you have, for a whole month of Ramadan, you have a captive audience, okay, in the masjid, and then we have these bayans and we have lectures and we have events and things like that. What are masjids not doing right, in your view? I mean, you're an expert in this, or where they are doing right. What are they not doing right to captivate that audience in a way that, maybe even if half of that audience continues after the month of Ramadan, after Eid al-Fitr, to become more practicing, more Islamic in their behavior. And the notion of being a Muslim doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wear abayas all the time and a topi all the time, because we all know that that is just a part of being a Muslim, but there's much more important, which is you mentioned about akhlaq and behavior, etc. So what do you think masjids need to do? I mean, young people are crying out to learn more about Islam. And we've had this discussion with Maulana Fazal Dad and others in the past. But what's your thoughts on it?
I think there's a massive growth here for masjids to do in the online or a social media platform and areas. So the youngsters wanting the trending or in thing would be having those kind of modes and apparatus available for them to connect with the masjids and the community and the religious, spiritual, not just social, physical, sporting, everything, but something that is done through the hub, and our hub is the masjid. So if the masjids were better engaging, let's say Snapchatting, Facebooking, Instagramming and all that kind of stuff online, as well as reaching out to their younger audience, would be brilliant. So you've got followers on certain platforms, on masjids, areas, they'd love that. And something, okay, you're having a fun day or a barbecue day or a football tournament or a women's talk or halakha, seerah series, tafsir series. Why not have it all on these platforms as well? So someone can follow you, whether they're at their work or whether they're doing their night shift or whether they can catch up later on their the downloads, so they can catch up on your tafsir or maybe send messages or support and donate, whether it's your charity.
Okay. The question then is, how many of our masjids or learned scholars are capable or have the ability to do that? I mean, I know, for example, I'm not on social media. The only thing I use is WhatsApp, every now and then. But I know that a majority of young people are now searching for knowledge online.
Yes, this is why I've said that, and that this is not a. Let me just explain. I mean, I was going to go on to how do we do this now. This is one of the things. Only social media is one thing. And then the activities, the masjids, the setup, the management, there's many issues there. But social media is just one thing I've touched upon. Now, you'd say, who'd do that? Because our imams or our experts or leaders wouldn't know how. Well, it's not always about imams doing this. It's about the management and the structure. And you'd have a youth or you'd have a developer, you've had somebody who would do this. and the imams there for religious, spiritual, leading, prayers,
But would
etc.
the imams feel threatened because at
No.
the moment they see? I mean, look at
Their role would be to have an input with this particular person, individual who's doing, let's say, the social media trending and etc. So you'd have somebody managing this, but then if you had queries or if it's religious or faith-based, then it goes to the scholar. If it's management, if it's Funday, if it's sporting, if it's something else, then it go to the relevant departments. Our hub, our masjid, is not just one dimension, spirituality or prayers. It should have all these things involved.
Unfortunately, that is not the case in the majority of
This
of
is why
mosques,
we
right?
need a total...
The majority of mosques don't have that attitude, that behavior, that mentality. We have closed the mosques from the community and made it into a place of just, aake namaz padh lo aur chale jao. Right? In my view, the mosque is much more like you say, it's a hub, where there's all sorts of different activities taking place. So I mean, if you take one issue, which is quite controversial, and that is the accessibility to women, for example, into the mosque.
Oh yes,
Right?
yes.
Now we from the Asian subcontinent,
whether it's accessibility, it's not just women, disability, those with learning difficulties, let's say teens and youth, the whole works.
But the women,
comes
I
in
mean,
there.
the women make more 50% of our population.
Yes,
Yet
indeed.
50% of our population, particularly from the Asian subcontinent, are denied access to the masjid, you know, except for a few exceptions. So, you know, as an imam, what are your views around the mosque's role in the community? I mean, you've described the hub. Now, do you think we need to change the model of the way
drastically.
Mosques are operating in this country?
Drastically, the models are changing, and I would advise anybody watching now planning new builds, or there are new builds taking place all the time, or new structures or new architectural, new designs and stuff like that. So I think we've moved on, I certainly hope so, about the women issue, because there's now a massive campaign. But you've just touched on one thing. You've got loads, like I said, women issue is something that we've been discussing for maybe coming up to a decade. So a lot of masjids are now looking towards that, or have and address that. But there's all sorts of other issues, whether it's disability, whether it's, you know, youth and teen, and whether it's the harms and those not taboo. They're not taboo subjects, but it's a hub. The masjid is a hub. So what are we doing for? So what are we doing for? Let's say those that are struggling with drugs or alcohol misuse or other kind of vices. So what kind of things are we doing for that? What kind of issues are we doing for our youth and teenagers in terms of entertainment, engagement, sports, or just through their studies and development, whether it's a future plan and what their visions are?
But I mean, you know my views. I've been saying this for a very, very long time, that I think, you know, we are, as I said, you know, we have removed the mosque from the Muslim community. Right? The mosque used to be the center of the Muslim community. We've now sort of put it in a little place. You know, all it does is, you know, go and pray your 5-time namaz, and that's it. And you know, and I've been an advocate of opening the mosques up to all sorts of activities, including access to women. But the way we are trained and the way our imams work, you know, normally, and I've been to the States and Canada, fortunately a few times. There, the imams are not just imams who come, lead the prayer, and then go away. The imams are full-time employees, and they're there from 9 o'clock in the morning, like in any office staff.
9 while 5
till
or
5,
such,
and they're open to people to come in by appointment in most cases. Anybody who's got an issue, they want to ask a question about Islam, they want to learn more about Islam, or they have an issue that they're unsure of, they can actually go in the mosque, meet the imam, and get some counseling and support and knowledge from them. We don't have that here. So how is this transformation going to take place?
I'll tell you what's happened. I've seen this happen in many areas, and what's happened now is we have the masjid as a place of ibadah, worship.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And then you'll have all these other community centres, and one community centre might be providing half of the activities, the other community centre might be providing the other half of the activities. So maybe the children's and young people services might be doing the stuff here, and the elderly or the sort of other clubs, the luncheon clubs or the book reading club or the any other activities might be done there, and then some activities here. So it's all yeah. And I think we need to go back to the basics where we were 1400 years ago, and how the hub was a hub rather than something else.
I'm glad you said that, because if I said that, half the imams in this country would turn around and say, "Deen se nikal gaya."
No, I don't think so.
I mean, you're an imam, you're a mufti. I'm glad you said it.
No, we do need our hubs and our masjids. I mean, look at some masjids. I mean, I was just looking at one of the masjids in London where they've got the young teenage boys playing, after they've read the salah, they'll be playing football in the same masjid, whether it's indoor and on a soft ball sponge, that's fine, or whether they're arm wrestling and doing a tug of war sort of a thing.
Inside the masjid itself.
Inside the masjid itself.
India, Pakistan ke imam to kahenge la hawla wala quwwata, ye koi ho sakta hai?
Well, whether it's a ibadat khana or a masjid itself, or whether they do it outside the parameters of the sanctified area, and then do the other activities. And this is something which was happening in the time of our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his Masjid al-Nabawi, whether they were learning archery or wrestling.
Where in the last 1400 years has that new practice of making the masjid, like you say, just an ibadat khana, and where did that emerge? How did it emerge? And why have we lost that? To a certain extent, the Christian community, the Christian churches, are still, like hubs, and provide a much more wider, broader services to the Christian community. So, if some Christian churches have got, they're full time, like us, they've got full time, reverends. They provide counselling. They provide, food banks. They provide all sorts of facilities. Coffee mornings and tea mornings, etc. Where did we change? Why? How did this happen in your view?
I suppose lack of leadership has been the main thing. So obviously the Khairul Qurun or the Khilafah system or the hub as such, the markaz and the leadership and direction has changed. So this is, and then you've got we've all gone into our own little
enclaves.
Yes, of
schools of thoughts and things like that.
Exactly. So hence, I would urge everybody watching, do not do that, and go back to your basics. It's very important to not go into our enclaves or not go into our bubbles or not going into our nation and tribal sort of issues.
But aren't the imams, the Maulanas themselves responsible for creating some of this?
Some are Maulanas and some are also our community leaders as such, or the elders, or the activists or people who are leading or managing or management committees of masjids.
So management committees don't dictate on Islamic issues.
They want practices.
Imams who will say, ye karna chahiye, ye nahi karna chahiye.
But then the management committee should then let the imams, if they've got the passion and they've got the vision and they share these values as you do, then they should then dictate, okay, the imam's going to do the religious side of things.
If I was to say to
I'm
sure my Maulana Boryat Sahib would not say this to me, but I know there are certain imams, if I say to Maulana, we need to do this and that, fatwa nikalenge mere samne. Ye to Islam se nikal gaya. Right. Now, I hope you found that interesting and enlightening so far. Fascinating discussion. We need to go to a break. Inshallah, we'll come back very soon. Please, if you are around, you have the opportunity, please call us and be part of this debate and discussion. Share your thoughts with us. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.